AI is evolving at such a pace, like you say, you can build in compliance, you can be getting the model to check the model.
It's not just we want a CFO.
Right.
It's like, well, why do you want a CFO?
Right.
Why have you lost 2 CFOs in the last 3 years? You might need not just a CFO, you might need a COO and a CFO to work together because the workload's too great. We use the data to get to some of these people if we've never met them before, and it helps us highlight who we should be talking to.
All right, folks, today we're lucky to have with us Ken Dickie. He's CIO at Leathwaite with a very illustrious career, and I'm excited to have him today. Thank you for the opportunity to come speak with us. I'm very grateful. Ken, why don't you walk us through your experience and your background?
Well, first of all, Fahad, let me just say thank you for inviting me here today. It was quite an interesting introduction, illustrious career. I have been very fortunate to have a career where I have worked in numerous industries, and what will be relevant to the conversation today, a lot of that has been in executive search.
Right.
But I started out actually with private banking and financial services. I actually went into financial press and journalism, not as a journalist, but surprisingly sort of working on the technology. And then I moved into search, and then I spent a long time with one of the Shreks, and very, very fortunate to spend time not only with that executive search firm, but in other parts of the world, which took me out to Hong Kong, where I spent 8 years. And as I exited out of that role, I went into retail, from retail into sports wagering, from sports wagering into insurance M&A, and then actually from there into insurance compliance. And post-COVID, I've been very fortunate to come back into search.
Wow.
I'm currently the CIO with Leathwaite, which is a top-tier executive search boutique firm.
Right.
So operating at the same level as the Shreks, C-level board, based out of the UK, but it's a global firm. We have a North American business in Asia, based out of Hong Kong and Singapore, and Europe as well. So hello, I'm here today.
Thank you. So I want to start off with your experience at one of the Shreks.
Okay.
And I want you to tell me about, go a little deeper into, being on the technology side for a Shrek firm. What was that like? What was your role at that firm?
So I was very fortunate to spend actually a very large chunk of my career, and actually we'll say Spencer Stuart. It's easy enough to see on LinkedIn, so it's no secret. And that started in way back in the early noughties. It was a fascinating piece where the executive search world was going through a professionalizing, but moving to a more enterprise focus where leveraging technology. The Spencer Stuart had a internal CRM technology that was considered world leading, but was built on very old technology, and the internet was starting to come to be a thing, and it was about taking what was traditionally very much like a law firm, professional services. Executive search was very, very based on traditional, this is my black book, these are the people I know, this is how we operate, and the idea that you could leverage technology to find new candidate pools from other parts of the world or have a better understanding of who those individuals were. It wasn't reliant on knowing that individual personally. That information and data was starting to become available. And my role at Spencer Stuart evolved as the market evolved and went from support and data systems to a whole new CRM that Spencer Stuart had rebuilt their system was called QNT. There is now a new system which has the same Q in it, and I was a part of the team that brought that CRM and the very clever technologies at the time, and they were class leading. Today we take for granted unified messaging,
right,
and desktop video and the ability to work from home, but Spencer Stuart really understood that to give that kind of mobility, that flexibility around technology, how important that cross-border communications were, the ability to share information, and for it to be accurate and up to date on a regular basis, and how important it was for that to be adopted by everybody inside the organization. And I think before we came onto the cast, we were talking about differences around the world. Executive search is executive search in many ways,
right?
But it is very, very, very much impacted by culture. It is very, very much impacted by the needs of businesses,
right?
And they vary from region to region,
right?
So if you are a soda manufacturer in North America, you may have very different supply chain demands to one that is operating in India,
right?
And culturally, and how the people are that run those businesses, you still want a head of supply chain or procurement officer or a chief financial officer in those markets.
Right.
But how you would approach that in North America and India fundamentally would be the same. You want the same information,
right.
but the candidate pools will be different.
Right.
Culturally, you may be asking somebody to move from the south of India to north of India, and culturally, does that fit for them? And understanding what it means for a family. Whereas if you move from the west coast of the US to the east coast of the US, you have similar things,
right?
But it's not the same challenge.
Right.
And being able to understand that, and technology facilitate that. You could be capturing not just having met someone,
right,
and have they got the resume that says they can do the job. You've had that conversation about the family, and they don't want to move because their kids are at X school, or for whatever region it's too far north, or they don't want to go wherever they're going. And Spencer's, especially with the internal systems, how they were integrating it with everything to get a unified platform.
Right.
It was a really, really, I think, incredibly forward-looking approach,
right,
to leveraging technology, even though it was still the same search, the world over. But it was it's a fascinating piece, I have to say.
The one of the things here that puzzles me about this specific firm is that most firms that I work with, they want to see a business use case. They want to know, okay, what are the dollars that I'm going to get at the end? So why do you think, Spencer Stuart was taking these risks, being technology forward, when it's not clearly evident what the benefit is going to be?
So I think there is a couple of parts to it, which is that Spencer Stuart and like the boutique I now work for, they're privately owned,
right?
And so there's a personal investment. So actually, there is a material impact to the individual that the technology can deliver that is visible to that partner. The partners will be questioning, "Hey, great, you've got this data, and we're leveraging it, and I'm making more money, so we want more of that."
Right.
And that is, we're delivering these amazing outcomes for our clients.
Right.
It's the same at Leathwaite. We're delivering these amazing outcomes for our clients.
Right.
We want more of this technology,
right,
to drive this.
Right.
And there was a very, very, very clear focus on adoption. There was a substantial investment in the technologies,
right,
Spencer. And they were adamant they wanted to see that return on investment, because the partnership,
right,
were valuing it. They'd already seen the benefits of some of it.
Right.
And it's a little bit like a gateway drug. It's like, we want a little bit more. We want a little bit more. And I think that's where, external investors can drive, like Hydrix or whatever, to do the same.
Right.
Because we want our pound of flesh. We want a return on our shares. But actually, if you're personally invested, like the partners are at Spencer Stuart, the partners at Leathwaite, they're personally invested.
Right.
There is a piece there where you're going, actually, we want this to work because we feel the benefit.
Right. We get the benefit.
We directly get that benefit.
Right.
And I think that's an important part. It can go against you as well.
Right.
There were things where, and this is where there is definitely a benefit to being a much larger organization versus a boutique, is that there were failures. It was challenging at times. There was substantial investments,
right,
that failed. But as a proportion of the revenue of a multi-billion-dollar firm,
right,
it doesn't feel so. It feels poor,
right,
but that failure can be accommodated. Whereas
you have chips to play. It's not.
Yes.
It's not going to put you out of business.
And so that when you say are willing to take that risk, it was still a planned risk. They were still going, okay, we're doing this over here. And at Leathwaite, for example, we are working on the new technologies. There's lots of exciting stuff out there, but we've got to be far more cautious about how we spend those pounds. And we've got to be very confident there's a return on that investment.
Right.
And you've got to be careful you don't get scared into doing nothing.
Right. Exactly.
And I think that's another part. And again, I'm very, very fortunate to have worked in organizations like, I said retail. Again, it's on my LinkedIn profile.
Yeah.
I work for Lululemon, like the world's leader in omni-channel retailing.
Right.
I mean, their embracing of technology at all levels.
Right.
And like, yes, Lululemon leggings are expensive. I could probably spend half an hour telling you why. And it's not because they want to charge a premium,
right,
but actually the technology behind the fabrics and everything, they are continually driving a better product. And actually in executive search, we are looking to give our clients the absolute best solution, the best outcomes, the best product.
Right.
And Spencer very quickly and very early on learned that could be facilitated by using technology.
That could be a differentiator. So, a Lululemon, you implement technology, it's scalable. Spencer, Stuart, you implement technology, that's not enough, right? Because different partners will see different benefits depending on what the partner puts in. I know part of your job was at Spencer Stuart was driving adoption, as I'm sure it is at Leathwaite as well. Talk a little bit about that.
So everybody's aware of the challenge. And actually, transformation isn't the technology itself. It's the changing of behaviors.
Right.
And this will probably make a lot of people in executive search firms laugh, but culturally, change is not something exec search professionals do very well. They don't. And so it is that whole adoption piece is some of it has to be mandated and forced, literally, like you have to do this.
Right.
But that's not the way to get the entire organization to buy into a change that will transform the business. You've got to take them on the journey.
Right.
And to say that it's easy is a falsehood. Spencer Stuart, Leathwaite, Lululemon, every place I've worked, the Jockey Club, when we've been talking about transformation, the challenge is bringing people on. It's not the technology. More often than not, it's not the technology. Yes, bits might be broken or something's a bit clunky or it takes 7 seconds to load when it should be 7 milliseconds.
Right.
You can fix for those. It's when somebody goes, well, it takes too long to load, I'm just not doing it then.
Right.
And it's that behavior
absolutely right.
you've got to work with. And it's about, there's an element of, yes, there's a stick, you have to do your job. But then there's the actual carrot, which is but if you do this return comes back to you tenfold over.
Right.
Like if you put this data in once, it's always there.
Right.
If it's in an Excel spreadsheet somewhere or in your notebook and you've never written it up,
right,
that information, and you can't share that with one of your colleagues,
right,
and your colleague could have won some business that could have been shared with you, and it becomes exponential when you start going around. And so if you can take
those small things add up very quickly.
Yeah. But it's also that in North America you have pay it forward, that cultural piece of going, well, if I do a little bit for somebody else, that goes on and that actually benefits somebody else, and actually. In Spencer, there was one of the things that I think that they should always be very proud of, but they do so much cross-border work. They work so well as teams. They're competitive, but not internally. They work together. I was very proud to be part of that. And I don't want to talk about too much about my former employer, but because it's a very similar experience at Leathwaite. But it's the same challenges. There's a lot of change. There's a lot of transformation, and it's about showing the individual that what might initially feel like borderline a punishment,
right?
And I think that's the easiest way. Is that like they feel like you've hit me with something. I don't want this. This is not what I asked for. But then you take them on the journey, and then they come out the other side of it and go, "Oh, now I get it."
Yeah.
And now when I go back to this, it's always going to be there.
Right.
And when I update it here, it's like my email syncs with that, and it like updates that client record. It's like, yeah, it does that. You only had to start up by getting that client record in the first place. And now that journey is richer for you. What we do for our clients at Leathwaite is now far more efficient. It's more accurate because it's not being pulled out of some notebook somewhere or out of your head and incorrect.
Right.
And we can also cross-reference and validate, and we'll keep that data up to date for you. Now it's in the system.
Yeah.
We can automate that. So you're always aware that candidate X or client Y is at company Z.
Yeah.
Oh, wait a minute, they've moved from company Z. And you're immediately told of that. And I think that's a piece where it sounds like you're over-promising, but once they witness it and can experience it, and I think adoption, that's the hardest part, is taking something that is, to you and I will just seem like, I can see it. Why can't you see this? This is like, what for us is very natural.
Right.
For a lot of people, they don't have the vision. And that's not to be critical of them. They don't see the technologies in the way we made it.
Right.
They just see it like, you've just taken away something that I'm really comfortable with and replaced it with something I'm not.
Right. It's more work for me.
Yes.
It's so funny. I was laughing when you were mentioning this. It's like whenever I run a demo and I run a real search, the way we demo product is we don't just do a Ken demo. I said, all right, I say, okay, give me a search. Yeah. And I run the search. And like within 10 minutes, I basically created the entire list, the long list. It blows the partners away. They're like, this is insane. We need this yesterday. But then when they use it themselves, it doesn't create the same results. They're like, but Fahad, you made it do it so easily. Like clearly your tool was for that use case. Your tool's not going to work for my use case. And I say to them, no, the problem is I really know how to use the tool. Yeah. So I know its shortcomings. And having understood this now, done this multiple times, I realized that the biggest thing that we as an AI developer need to work on is how do you make the tool super easy to use to someone that doesn't know the depths of AI, doesn't understand, the system's limitations. So the last 2.5 years, most of our work has been on the user experience, not actually on building the core AI tech.
See, and that I think is an interesting pivot, because we were talking about, should we bring up tech stack in this conversation? I'm like, people aren't interested in that. But I think people would be interested in how have you made their life like that journey into doing something different easier. How quickly can I, how intuitive, how quickly can I just turn this on and run with it?
Yeah.
And and again, there's this piece where I think for a challenge for a smaller organization such as my own, which is we don't have 500 trainers. We can't afford to take the partnership out of the market and put them in a room and spend weeks training them. That there has to be an element that it's intuitive and people can be self-sufficient. And so a tool where the UX and the experience that the user has, the simpler the better.
Yeah.
And this is, again, I'm going to get myself a whole lot of comments for saying this. Search isn't complicated.
Right.
There are complicated searches.
Right.
But what we do is a methodical process. You just said there a long list. I'm pretty sure every executive firm knows exactly what you've just meant, and then goes to a short list, and you go down to your selected candidate pool or whatever it is you want to call it.
Right.
And along those stages, no matter the organization, there'll be third-party referencing, there'll be checks of off limits, and all the other wonderful things that us exec search firms do. But it needs to be easy. I mean, like, it's amazing that people will come from one search firm into another and then really struggle with the technology. Go, well, how is it that it was that different at True, or it was that different at Korn Ferry, or that different at Spencer Stuart?
Right.
Surely we're all doing the same thing.
Right.
And it's because people really struggle visualize. And I go back to this adoption piece, which is that if it's not intuitive, and then what happens is bad behaviors turn up. It's like, I can take a shortcut around this because I'm falling behind, or I used to do this at organization X. I'll just maintain an Excel spreadsheet.
Right.
And all of a sudden you've got data, like you've got shadow data.
Right. Exactly.
And then that data isn't in the system. And it's amazing how quickly that data grows and undermines this platform. And it's those behaviors. Again, we haven't even touched on AI yet.
Right.
We're talking about behavior.
Absolutely.
Right. Like, and that's the piece where if you get the tooling to be so intuitive, to be literally like you're talking to somebody in the room.
Right.
And you don't...
That's the holy grail.
Yeah.
That's what you want to get to.
You want that experience to be so simple for the individual that adoption isn't a problem.
Right. The biggest problem right now is the adoption. It's not that the tools can't do the job. They do it so well. Like I showed somebody how some of our models were performing at 99th percentile of a researcher, and it blew them away. It's like, it can do it, but but it won't work for you. They're like, why?
But this is the interesting piece, and this is maybe we should bring it a little bit onto the technologies and some of the challenges around, again, we talk about snake oil and how much is overpromised
Right.
and then under-delivered on. And then that actually detracts from those really solid products out there that do a really good job because
Right.
you just assume they're all snake oil.
Exactly. It's bad for the entire community.
Exactly that. And actually, and then people look at you and go, well, how is it I can go into ChatGPT and I pay $10 a month for this
Right.
and I type that into there and it gives me this perfect answer.
Right.
How is it your $6,000 or whatever
Right.
system? How is it it's not coming up with the same list of people?
Right.
I can do it for free on Claude. Why are you charging me for this?
Right.
That's the conversation I have with my partners who are going, this is a challenge. Why is it? And it's like, yeah, but the data set we're using
Right.
is the data that you've created over the last 25 years
Right.
and it's full of gaps.
Right. Exactly.
And what we need to be doing is fixing those gaps as much as teaching you how to use the system.
Yeah.
And they go, yeah, but I know I had a conversation with Joe Bloggs at blah, 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 and I've had a round of golf with him last weekend. And you go, did you put that in the system? And they look at you and you go, so how is our AI supposed to know you had a round of golf? Your AI, when you use it at home, because you put it on your personal calendar
Right.
that you had a round of golf with Joe Bloggs,
Right.
knows
Right.
that you met Joe Bloggs.
Right.
We don't.
Right.
And it's like, and it's when you use simple examples like that,
Yeah.
that you can get into the realms of trying to break down some of these barriers to understanding why there are gaps in performance.
Right.
And one of the things that I'm very mindful of as an organization, the enterprise value inside my firm is this data. What's going on in my partners' heads needs to translate into a system so that should they decide to move on, retire, whatever, they don't take it away with them.
Right.
That, I'm very fortunate to be blessed with partners that have been with the organization for a really quite long time.
Mm-hmm.
And it means that they've got such immense institutional knowledge in their heads. And if we can get that into the system, if they do decide to retire,
Yeah.
we don't lose that.
Right.
And at the moment, it affects all of them. Spencer, Hydrix, all the shreds,
Absolutely. Yeah.
they walk away. And I don't care what anybody says.
Right.
AI is not going to fix it for that.
Yeah.
Unless we get that information out of somebody's brain. And
Right.
that's the hard challenge.
Yeah.
I think that also then feeds into the adoption piece again when you go, yeah, but it's in here.
Right.
And I can get to it really quick in here. Why do I have to go through there to get to it?
Mm.
And it's like, yeah, but it's not you getting to it.
Right.
It's your colleague.
Right.
And I think the interesting piece, like you were saying about the being in the 99th percentile for the researchers, where I see real value in this is not, a lot of people be going, oh, well, this is going to replace all of our researchers. It's like, no, it augments those really talented associates, those really talented consultants who are looking for immense talent in individuals the world over. You're literally giving them Pandora's box to open and go, dip in here and find all of these amazing people.
Mm.
And it's not just a LinkedIn search or it's a our system search. It's a much more holistic, broader spectrum. This is where the research piece, and as you said, you can do it in the room.
Right.
If you are presenting, and this is how I envisage it going. You sit in a room with a board who are talking about future leadership needs, and it's like, we're considering a CEO for X.
Yeah.
And you go, well, okay, so what is the job spec? And if you then can use the AI piece to really understand what their challenge is,
Right.
and go, well, didn't you have a challenge in the Middle East? Is that like, and they go, how did you know about that sort of stuff? You can augment what they're saying.
Right.
And then, but by the time you finish that conversation, you go, well, I've got a list of 50 names.
Right.
That's how it should be.
Right.
And the value that the search firms will continue to provide to large organizations will be talking to those 50 people, finding out if that challenge at Big Bank X is something they want to take on.
Right.
And what would it take for them to take that job?
Right.
Because that's a personal thing that AI is not going to tell you that their kids are just finishing their senior school. And so therefore they're not really wanting to move from North America to Europe.
Right.
And so you go, okay, well, we can position you for a role maybe at a different time, and we understand and that's where the AI augments the human piece. Is that
you know what's so funny? It's that the longest piece in a search is the data processing. And that's not why executive search firms get hired. They actually get hired for the ability to relationship build, sell the role to a very high quality client, and then sell the quality client back to the, sell a very high quality candidate back to the client.
Yeah.
That's really why executive search firms get hired. Yet the amount of time being spent on what they're not paid for is unreal. Like the amount of time being spent on data processing is unreal. It takes 6 weeks to generate a long list. It just like used to blow my mind away.
You've nailed one of the challenges that, and I don't care what any firm says, they all still have them. I'm not going to, like, we spend inordinate amounts of time getting to things we should be getting to way quicker. And that's not because my research teams and the associates and the communities aren't amazing at what they do.
Right.
But there are laborious processes that you're like, this could be replaced. I'm not replacing you,
Right.
I'm replacing that process.
Exactly.
And if you could do that in 1 hour instead of 1 day, or 1 day instead of 5 days,
Right.
You can be materially more impactful to the business.
Right.
You can, and this is not about tinkering around the edges. We've talked about this, about AI being an ad hoc thing. People going, we've got Copilot and we don't get much value from it. It's like, well, you are getting value from it, but you don't see it at a commercial level because it's on the edges, it's on the periphery. And it's not that I'm skeptical about these things. I believe they are useful,
Right.
and they're kind of, again, I've mentioned this term before, table stakes. You kind of just expect you have them,
Right.
but they're really hard to qualify and quantify what value they bring. In that, great, my associates have got an extra 20 minutes for their lunch, or they've got an extra half hour out of the day.
Right.
But it's not material.
Right. Doesn't translate at the firm level.
Exactly that.
Or at the client level.
Yeah, the client doesn't see that.
Right. The client, there's no benefit to the client with just using ad hoc tools. Or at the firm, there's no big gain in margins or big gain in capacity or big gain in, because it's a serial process. It's not just there needs to be benefit at that level. There needs to be benefit. It all needs to be tied together, and there needs to be benefit each and every single level. That's when you start seeing the gains amplify. If I can do the search, maybe 10 minutes faster, but it still takes me the same amount of time to do the other things. It still takes the same amount of time to convince the client to accept the candidate. It doesn't matter. All those gains are gone.
Most clients get weekly or fortnightly updates. So if you've saved half an hour
Right.
on a Monday, you're still talking to them on a Friday. The client doesn't feel any value from that.
Right. Exactly.
Now, what you could say is, well, a half hour every day, that's 2.5 hours. That could be translated into a quarter of a search elsewhere. And you could go, yeah. But human beings don't work that way.
Exactly.
That's not,
they can't see it that way.
And yes, you could turn around and go, well, collate all of those half hours across an organization, say as large as a Spencer Street. You go, well, that starts to feel material. But actually you go, well, why is that not presenting itself in the bottom line? Why are we not, or why is why are the margins not larger? Why is our capacity still an issue? And that's because, as we've just said there, it's not at the firm level materially making a difference.
Right.
Well, that was the whole point about moving, and I was talking about firm value, wasn't I? So it was that whole, that we talked about that ad hoc nature, the firm wide value of AI, that transformation piece is hard for, let's say, more conservative with a small c executive search firms to really embrace and understand that there is a material difference in being AI native, like as in living in an AI world. It's not about binning off and disposing of other CRM technologies. This all comes together as a complete tech stack. You still want Clue to pull information from our CRM,
right,
and augment that with what it knows from the rest of the wide world,
right,
and present it in a way that the person using the system can interpret and understand in a material and meaningful way, all in a blink of an eye.
Exactly.
And something that, would, whether it's being done in the room with the client or whether it's and it means that you could say, you're not getting your search summary at the end of the week. We did the work today. It's available to you now.
Yeah, exactly.
And the client going, but it's we spoke to you in the morning and it's Monday afternoon. And what do you mean it's available now? Well, that's the first pass. We've already, and we can qualify that. That's where I want to take our business. That's where I want our clients. I want my partnership and I want my colleagues to be able to go to our clients who are amazing top tier clients,
right,
and impress them in such a way that the quality, they go, yeah, but okay, well, you've given us a list, but the name's going to be poor. And they're going to go, but this is an incredible list of candidates.
right.
and the way I translate this in my head is that if we did that on the Monday, we now have the whole of Tuesday to do the same again. We have the whole of Wednesday to do the same. We are now factor of 5,
right,
scaling,
right.
And again, this won't really translate for a podcast, but most organizations are a pyramid with the resource and research at the bottom. In a boutique, it's much more of a vertical.
Yeah.
And actually what we're looking for is that inverted pyramid,
right,
where it's not, and actually if you're applying that principle, we're talking about involving more people. This isn't about AI robots replacing individuals. Yeah. It's actually about empowering more people to do more in a far more comprehensive way that I think in just 18 months to 2 years' time, our clients are going to be, their expectations are going to be in a different place to where they are today.
Absolutely. That's already happening. One of the foundational models companies, they hired an exec search firm and they completed a C-level, that search firm uses our tool. They completed a C-level placement in not 12 weeks.
Right.
In not 12 days, in 12 hours.
See,
from the time they discussed the spec to when the person had accepted the role already was 12 hours. That blew me away.
I'm not saying that that's not true, because that would be remiss of me. But there is an element where that must have been for a client who is that open-minded, because
that's true.
Part of the
Absolutely.
challenge, part of the challenge with our clients is that, and also I'm not going to name a particular client, but let's say the insurance industry, which has been far more conservative than say the financial services banking side of things. Yeah. The idea that you could get candidates in front of them that quickly, they'll be just like, I haven't got time for the meetings.
Yeah, absolutely.
And actually that's where it's nailing it down to going, well, okay, here is your candidate. You now to be way more proactive. You need to be available. And this is where I think clients will change. And then you do get into the realms of the individuals that we are talking about, C-level in bulge bracket roles. They're not on 1 month's notice. They can't, I mean, North America is slightly different, but most people are committed to 6 months. And
absolutely. There's for every industry, there's going to be, so this is a startup. It's a foundational model company. They're like doubling valuation every 3 weeks. So for them, not having a C-level role filled is a very big material impact right now.
Yeah.
If you're in a mature industry, if I get somebody in the seat 6 weeks versus 12 weeks, it's not a real material difference, right? Potentially.
Yes and no. It's material to a search firm because if we do it in 6 weeks, it gives us another 6 weeks to do another search.
Exactly.
And so
at the search firm level, it's absolutely.
So whilst the client's impressed that we've done it in 6 months, actually internally we're over the moon because we've now got a team that's available. And then what you're doing, you're getting into the conversion piece that actually what is more often not the really challenging part,
right?
Which is taking someone who's already in a job that's paid £5 million a year,
right,
and saying, "Here's another job at £5.1 million a year. Why are you going to take that job?" So it's about making sure that there is and it's not always about the salary. It's about what the challenge is. It's like, oh, actually, that was UK, that's Europe. This is group versus singular entity. And it's all about that conversion piece where you're talking that individual about, as you say, you're selling the client to the candidate.
Right.
Our candidates may have been former clients,
right,
and they're going into a role where they are going to possibly be a future client,
right,
and it's all operating in a kind of a level where the more you can bring to the table to enrich every aspect of the search,
right,
so that you can complete the search. Any tool that facilitates that happening more effectively, more quickly, is a material game changer.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that is firm level change.
Yeah.
That is transfer. When a business can truly buy into something like that, a tooling that allows them that kind of transformative business change, firm level. We're not talking about Copilot here.
Yeah.
We're talking about changing the ways you do business.
Exactly.
It's still executive search.
Exactly.
Still human.
Still human. That's the big part. The data processing part is, like, as I said, is not what the executive searches get paid for. Somebody's not getting you because you're really good at generating lists.
Yeah. You say that. There are some clients who they get really miffed if they don't see a long list. And you're like, why don't we just get to the 20 people you want to talk about?
Right.
But no, I want to see that you've
done through. I know, but that's not the primary reason why you're gonna win the pitch from another executive.
It's like, it's funny. We do have, it's just like you and I know that there is an element that the clients that ask to see that long list effort is because they're going, we've paid you quite a bit of money. We want to know you're doing some kind of work.
Yeah.
And fundamentally that long list is not what we're being paid for.
Right. I want to talk about a subject that gets like pushed to the side. And it's actually one of the biggest hindrances why AI is not getting adopted in a lot of firms. You work with researchers, you work with associates, you develop a relationship with them. And quite honestly, a lot of the times before meetings, I would get coached by, the managing partner or the CEO that, hey, we really want to shy away from, all of this is going to get automated because I don't want my colleagues to feel overwhelmed. I honestly believe that's a very narrow view that, hey, this is going to replace my researchers. But I want your opinion on that.
So there is an aspect where all of this tooling does replace some of your researchers.
Right.
And what I mean by that is that the tooling, there are organizations like WePro and there are Aon and other firms out there that have provided LexisNexis. They've all provided research and they're all trying to work out how the human aspect of the research evolves. And in an organization like my own, we have a limited resource pool. We're very mindful of who does what inside the organization, and we wear many hats. And the idea that you could introduce a tool that could replace some of those hats does cause fear within people. And I would argue rightfully so, because in certain organizations, it is a cheap shortcut that's going to backfire on an organization. I'm not saying it's the right thing to do, but organizations will see a technology and leverage it in the wrong way. When you take an organization like my own, where we have associates, we're very proud of the fact that we've got graduates we bring through the organization. We're not planning on never having graduates again.
Right.
We're not planning on never having a research associate. What we're planning for is how do we take these technologies and give us material growth? How do we empower that researcher as if they've got 10 underlings working for them?
Right.
Like the robots are there to help them make my products that we sell to our clients via our partnership supremely better.
Right.
And it is how certain organizations and certain leadership teams will look at this tooling. So I think, and the reason I don't want this an elephant in the room, and I actually have heard that kind of commentary where, oh, can we not talk about that because it might upset X group, or you're talking about automating a financial process that we've got a finance team. Can we not go there? And it's like, there are reasons why that concern exists, because fundamentally some people will use these tools in areas
and kick people out.
And so what is really important as leaders is that you manage that inside your organization. I am very transparent. Anybody can come and ask me. My door is always open at work and ask me about AI, and I've heard we've got this and we're going to do this, and it's like, and I will allay those fears, because for me, yes, of course I want to improve margins.
Right.
Losing a researcher does not make the difference.
Right.
If I can get 5 more searches in the door and that researcher does 5 searches, not 1 search.
Exactly.
That is a material difference.
Exactly.
And then if I get another researcher in and they can do another 5.
Exactly.
We're now competing with the Shreks, and we are agile. We're leveraging the technology. We are competing in more domains. At the moment, we are we'll go into pitches and for roles, and we'll be competing against the Shreks, and we more often than not win against them. But there's a limit to how many pitches we can turn up to.
Right.
But if I can turn around to my organization and say,
we can do
Scale's
5
not
more
a problem.
pitches.
Yeah.
I also think another side effect that's going to come out of this is I've never met a researcher that's like done researching.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, oh yeah, I'm done with all the research. Really? No, I've never heard that, right? They're always doing more research.
It's funny you said, I heard something today, and I can't remember exactly how, so I won't get this verbatim, but somebody said to me, oh yeah, there's this client, they won't buy mapping off us now because they've got some tool and then they just do all their own mapping. And I'm like, what, they've done with mapping? Like, the thing that changes pretty much every single day. Like, really? Like, has the internet just stopped? I mean, what's happened here? Like, you mentioned that research never stops researching, right? Like,
Right.
and this is where, and I do wear many hats at Leathwaite, where I put my CIO hat on and go, information and data-led decision making and data-led strategies, where yeah, you keep giving me more data. I'll keep throwing researchers at it, because I'm going to find something. I will find the diamond in the rough. We will find that niche market. We will go into that private equity space. We will operate in that industry that, wait a minute, we didn't even realize that this was a challenge.
Right.
And we can service that challenge because we're functionally driven, not we only do financial services.
Right.
Like, who cares if a tractor company needs a new general manager for a region that covers all of North America? That's like the CEO. That is, that is a role that we can be fulfilling. And we haven't done anything working with tractor manufacturers. Well, this person can now research that.
Exactly. That's exactly the part people are not getting to. It's people that have already industry knowledge and they use AI, they leverage AI. They can now go so much more deeper.
Yeah.
And with AI, you can now penetrate and enter new markets so much more quicker. So that's the picture that a lot of people seem to miss. And I think it's because they can't visualize it.
Yeah.
They can't think of it. They can't think that far. They're like, wait a minute, I did this work. Now I'm not going to do this work.
Yeah.
Yes. So you understand so much more than that work.
And that's the piece that I also, and if this is a good call out, but there is a negative to it from my business perspective, which is we're removing some of the barriers to entry.
Right.
That means more people can compete with me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that gives me cause for concern
Right.
as well. So on one hand, it's the offensive, I want to do more work. I want to do the better things for my client. I want to do all of this amazing stuff with my research team, and we want to grow and do all of this amazing stuff. We have to be mindful that a competitor can come out of nowhere now.
Right.
They don't need to have 30 years of operating in the city of London.
Absolutely.
They can turn around and go, well, the information that Ken's just presented to you, I can present to you.
Absolutely. So yeah, I was having this conversation with someone the other day from another executive search firm, and I was giving him the data, and I said, before LinkedIn had a quote where they said, one of the executives said, now that LinkedIn is out, all recruiters are going to lose their job because all the Rolodexes are going to be public. And it's so funny because before LinkedIn, there was 100,000 recruiters, and now there's over 1 million recruiters. So the number of recruiters significantly increased.
Well, and that's so. This is going to go back to my MBA studies. It's where they call it red ocean and blue ocean,
Right.
Like where you're competing in the space where, like, if you remove that barrier to entry, the ocean hasn't got any bigger.
Right.
We've just now got so many more sharks in there, right? And so and the water is bloodied. And I think this is the piece where, again, it's really important for organizations like mine, where we are doing this amazing work and we have loyal clients and we are loyal to our clients.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, the value proposition that might come from a disruptor or a competitor, and they could turn up tomorrow.
Right.
And they could be operating out of a low-cost location. They could be in the UK still, but they could be operating out of somewhere in Devon.
Right.
And they don't need to be in the city.
Right.
And I think this is something that will become more prevalent and people will start to see. It's like, wow, I just went into a pitch and we were talking to a client and they've been talking to Joe Blogg's company X.
Right.
And they had like the equivalent of a pitch book data.
Right.
There in the room. I mean, you'll be like, how can they afford PitchBook? Well, no, because they're sourcing it in another way. And it's like, wow, because a lot of what we do in executive search comes with expensive bills. Like if anybody knows how much a recruiter license is, they know how expensive this stuff is to run as an organization.
Yeah.
But if you start removing some of those barriers to entry, and you've just used a really good example of LinkedIn turned up, it didn't mean that it destroyed recruiting.
Right.
It made it more accessible to recruiters.
Right.
And now you've got all the job board aggregators that sit there and churn this stuff out and present it in different ways, and they're pulling in LinkedIn data and all the other pieces that go with it. And this is all being automated. You're like, you know, if you're in the staffing industry, which is kind of tiers below where we are in executive search, you're already seeing that wholesale change in how that operates.
Yeah.
Where, you know, there are bots making calls to the candidate pool and assessing individuals, and then coming back and taking a 2,000 applications for 400 roles at a fulfillment center and processing that in a day. Yeah. Which would have been weeks and weeks and weeks of recruiters' time. Right. And it's not that these jobs and these industries, the recruitment's going away, but it's how that's being handled. And you've got large organizations like the staffing companies like the Hayes and the Kellys and all the Manpowers of this world, who are going to definitely have to face up to it. Yeah. The impact, because there's nothing to stop you and I going out, firing up this like a Clue or an agent and running that staffing role without 100 recruiters. Right.
With just agents.
Just with agents.
Having said that, I do think that data as a moat still plays a part in executive search, where it's non-executive search, it's experienced lower tier. Yeah. There you're just looking at the skills and you're making an assessment. But in executive search, the history, the data that the firm has does play a part. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes. And actually it's a good point. And I will start with the staffing piece. There is a very, very, very distinct separation between recruiting, even up to fairly senior management roles inside an organization, which they are going, are you qualified at X? Have you managed a team of 6? When you start getting into the realms of executive search, there is, you'll get a Hogan test and you'll get all of these kind of psychometric things. But there is a cultural affinity at a leadership level that has to be met. Like when you are looking at a resume of somebody who's been in an industry for 30 years and led different organizations, so they went to Stanford or they went to Oxford, they went to Cambridge, they've worked in all of these domains. She's an amazing human being, but she's not going to fit with these other women or these other men on this leadership team, because she thinks differently. Exactly. And actually we've got to manage the client because she looks amazing on paper and she is amazing. Exactly. And it's about understanding how you articulate that. And this is where, we're a human capital industry. Right. And you've mentioned it a couple of times, which is, and we're not paid for the data. Right. We use the data to get to some of these people if we've never met them before. Right. And it helps us highlight who we should be talking to. But fundamentally, and this is where it never ceases to amaze me, my colleagues, when you hear them talking to the candidates, when they're having a conversation with someone, they're not talking about, what was the budget you managed? Like, they're like, how do you find the challenges of talking to the leadership team and getting across and articulating the transformation drivers that you are trying to bring to the business? And they're getting into these really intimate conversations. And I can overhear some of these calls, and we talk with the consultants and the teams, because even if you put that into a transcript and that was pulled into our CRM ATS kind of platforms, it still doesn't carry necessarily the nuance, right, the tone, right. But my partners will remember the conversation they had with the client, who actually, they were quite factual, but actually you could get a real palpable sense of how stressed they were by this role not being filled, or the challenges they were facing. And that can be captured by the human interaction. Yeah. And I think it's a fascinating separation between the very functional, we need somebody to put a box in a loader that goes out to a van, and And that's not to disparage that role because it's really important. But fundamentally, that individual role is not transforming a wider business. That character, I'm not going to mention names, but my experience at Lululemon was a revelation because as an organization, they run their business in a very, very, very different way. It's very much, some people describe it as a cult. I'm not saying it's a cult, but it's fascinating how much of it's based around emotion, people, and driving experience. And that comes from the top and the leadership team, and they all embrace this.
Right.
If you're an executive search firm running a search for an organization like that, that's what they're looking for. Finding that in somebody's resume is it's just not possible.
It will never show up.
But you need it to fill a leadership role at an organization like Lululemon. You need to be able to have those conversations, and you need to be able to understand what that looks like.
Yeah.
And I give you a personal experience from changing my role to going to the jockey club.
Right.
The individuals that I was working with there through the search process, they were like, you're in this really dynamic, vibrant Lululemon retail environment. You're coming to what is basically a quasi-government organization that is maybe 20, 30 years behind Lululemon. and again, the journey there is having that conversation. And they're assessing me for my ability to transform my character to be able to be impactful in an organization that doesn't do change. Like the Jockey Club doesn't do change. It's super successful. Why does it need to change? But it has to. Wagering's changing, horse racing's changing. And it's not. It's a philanthropic organization in Hong Kong. It's an amazing place. And it does amazing work. But everybody knows in Hong Kong, culturally, it's quite unique. And very, 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 very different to Lululemon. And that's where a search person is so powerful. Because they also don't want to take somebody out of a role at Lululemon, put them into the jockey club, and that person fell at the jockey club.
Yeah, or that person they know is going to be unhappy.
Yeah, but when I say failure, I don't mean that they don't do the job. But unhappiness for me is failure. If we take somebody from one role and put them into another role, and they do not enjoy what they're doing, that's a failure on our side.
Yeah,
because the client's not winning. At the end of the day, fundamentally, the candidate's had a bad experience. The client is probably getting somebody who's doing the job, but they're not getting the best of that person. And that's where, again, the human elements are so important. And I think this is where search will always have a place.
Exactly.
And it's easy to sell that to a client.
Exactly.
It's easy to sell to a client. What you're paying us for is that piece.
On that piece, I have an executive coach, and we were offered this amazing opportunity from a top tier VC to take money. And my executive coach goes to me, Fahad, you really value your liberty, and you're going to lose that. And this startup that you've built that you absolutely love, you might start detesting it because the liberty piece is going to go away. Do you understand that? I was like, holy shit, like that. She's absolutely right. I can't take this money from this VC based on, what they want. So, and I feel like a lot of the search consultants are able to get to that level of detail about what a human likes and dislikes versus a recruiter that's doing that at the mid-level or junior level doesn't really necessarily need to get at that level.
It's going to sound like snobbery, or again, it is very much not about disparaging different types of recruitment, but contingent recruitment is about putting numbers on a board. I need to get a new manager for a print company. I get paid £10,000 for doing that. I need to do another printer, another £10,000. And it's a grind. Being retained, we're a retained executive search. We are like a law firm. We're retained. We share the client's needs and we have to understand the challenges and embrace it in a way that it's not just we want a CFO. It's like, well, why do you want a CFO? Why have you lost 2 CFOs in the last 3 years? Is there something inside the organization? Can we maybe find a better way of addressing this? You might need not just a CFO, you might need a COO and a CFO to work together because the workload's too great. And then being able to be that trusted advisor as well as provide the human capital is what differentiates the Shreks, the boutiques like that. There are other boutiques who do senior level search, but more often than not, they're not doing it at the level that we are, and like the Shreks are, because the Shreks, Leathwaite, we're trusted advisors,
Right.
and it just so happens that we find people to put in roles.
Right.
And that's how I think of it. Genuinely, again, I'm very, very proud of the companies I've worked for. I've been very lucky to have this spread of top tier firms where I've learned. And one of the things, and it'll come back to the AI, is trust. Trust is such an important thing to build. Going, looking your client in the eye, meeting the candidates. And it was your line, not mine.
Right.
You don't build trust over Zoom. That
Right.
was your line, right? It's true. We've met over the airwaves, but this is actually far more fascinating because we can see our body language,
Right.
and actually that's what differentiates executive search again. It's that whole human element. And I think where the technology can be leveraged to give the partner, the consultant, the researcher more time to do the more human things.
Right.
That's when that's when the AI is absolutely bringing firm value.
Right.
Because there's so much to be said for that face-to-face conversation.
Yeah. I took a whole bunch of variables for executive search. I put them into a machine learning model to see, okay, what drives revenue more for some partners and less for other partners. The number one factor with the highest correlation is the amount of meetings that person had and the amount of in-person meetings a person had. And so if you're an executive search, so one of the search firms partners told me, is like, so you're basically saying, I just need all my partners, I need all my people to just have more meetings, in-person meetings. I said, that's exactly right. If you're able to do that, there is a highest correlation of not next year, next quarter, how much more revenue your partners are going to drive if you just change that one variable.
So a Shrek will turn up with a larger group,
Right.
because they're charging a lot of money. It's the old professional service thing. If you've ever dealt with an Accenture or a Deloitte, they'll turn up with 12 people because you're paying a lot of money for us.
Right.
And it's like, and I that's not to do a disservice of a Hydrix, an Egon. A larger group kind of talks to the fact that they're showing off they have human scale.
Right. They have,
and there is something to be said for that, because they're going to say, you can trust us.
Yeah.
If one of these two fall sick, there's two over here.
Right.
They can keep up. And actually, if I'm not around, this person's around. And so you've got a very substantive team that is supporting you on what could be a very challenging search that costs you hundreds of thousands of dollars. So we want to show you that we're here to facilitate and support your need. And actually, there's something to be said about that. It's reassuring. And you know what? You walk into any top car dealership, and when you open the door to that Bentley or the Rolls Royce or the, I dare say, BMW or an Audi, but when you shut the door, you feel the heft of that door. And it talks to quality. It's weight, and they actively put weights in the doors,
right,
because that's your touch point.
Right.
It's the same thing. When you see a larger team, that's the touch point.
Right.
What happens is that those people then disappear into the murky grey, and then there'll be one associate or maybe two that is dealing with that client on a regular basis. But it's just you're paying Rolls-Royce money for us as a Shrek. Here's some Rolls-Royce kind of experience, some weight.
Right.
So as a boutique, when you turn up and there is maybe two partners and one associate, and that's just three people in the room, the gravitas comes from being able to articulate how you've made other clients happy, how you've been able to service. We charge as much as a Shrek. We're not the cheap option, but let us tell you about all the successful outcomes. And you've always done it with the Shrek, but get that. There's something they've delivered for you, but always over 24 weeks, always to the highest standard. And you see that it's a sales pitch. But I think more and more that concept of heft can go against the Shreks.
Yeah.
They're going, yeah, but we need you to be agile. We need you to think about things in a different way. We want a different candidate pool. We want to really focus on diversity. We want an eclectic candidate pool. And if somebody turns up like in the old school way of here's 10 people in suits,
Right.
you're like, oh, we don't want you necessarily to be all rocking up in jeans and a t-shirt.
Right.
But where's the dynamism? Where's the
Right.
I left the office today. Half the partners are in suits because they've been out doing pitches, because they've gone into certain organizations where that's expected of them.
Right.
I also know that we had a pitch earlier this week and somebody went in a very casual way,
Right.
because it's knowing your client.
Right.
And I think this is where we are in the room because people know our product, and we have built up a very, very, very substantial, high quality brand and reputation that's easily lost. So we recognize we've done an amazing job to get here. And so we won't do anything to jeopardize that reputation.
Right.
And, we will say to people, check with our other clients, check on our work.
Yeah.
We are comfortable with that. And actually we do that less and less, because actually our track record is one of we've done a CEO at this bank, we've done a CEO at that bank,
Right.
we've done a CEO at that bank, and the CFO at that bank. Oh, wow. Okay. That's all of our competitors. Yeah. And you are behind these guys, right? So yeah. And look, the world's a big place, and there's a lot of market out there to move into. And I think that competition against the Shreks is an interesting one, because we are constantly looking at what is our value, what do we bring to the conversation that is unique, and what is matching them.
Right.
And I think the Shreks look at us turning up and go, okay, they're walking the room. Why are they here?
Right.
What are they doing different to us?
Right.
And that's actually where I give kudos to Spencer Stuart, because I know them more than other Shreks, but they don't rest on their laurels.
Right.
It is a good, healthy competition. Like Spencer is looking at how can we do things more efficiently, more accurately, with better outcomes. How do we use our scale to make sure that Leathwaite doesn't take work from us?
Right.
How do we ensure that our clients are getting the best service from Spencer? And it's not just a case of we're getting this work because we're just the brand in the market.
Right.
And actually, I respect and kudos to the Spencer Stuart team and the leadership team there, because they've done a very, very good job for the best part of 60 odd years, really maintaining that upper tier of branding that, Spencer is recognized in the market as being phenomenal. Like all search firms, though, there are pitfalls.
Yes.
And the trouble with scale is, and this is not Spencer, this is the Shreks as a whole, the candidate experience can be left wanting, because they are working and they can be taking you part of the way through a journey, and then you don't get any further. And not that they ghost you, but that's it, you're done. That's it, you're done. And as a boutique, we can't afford to burn any relationship in any way, shape or form.
And you can't afford to burn a candidate, period.
A candidate is a future client.
Right.
We look at everybody we talk to as a future client. Even if they're going into a role where they are never going to hire someone and they're never really going to be a future client, we treat them as they're going to be a future client. And there's a reason for that. There's a reason because they do become clients. So it's a way of guaranteeing future pipeline. I mean, that's an important part. But also there is this, we want the candidate to talk to their peers about a really positive experience with Leathwaite.
Right.
And I know of people who will, and again, I don't know this is Spencer, but I know of, I'm not going to name the search firm, but I know of a peer who's had a really horrific experience with one of the Shreks. And it's like, was I just there to be a make rate? I was the one woman at the interview, and then ghosted, and she's like, if they come back to me again, I don't want to work with them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And this is a candidate experience.
That's crazy.
And that for me is really telling.
Right.
And we have, I'm not going to talk too much about our specific products, but we have things inside our product that we sell to our clients, where we talk about that and how we actually have founders of my firm reach out independent of the search to ask what the experience is, both at client and candidate level.
That's very important. I think that is the absolute most important thing.
So that's a founder of the firm calling someone. It's not random. I mean, they're targeted,
right?
But it's a certain point in the search to turn around and go, "What's your experience?" More often than not, the client's going, "Great, so far everything's seen lots of people." Then they'll talk to the candidate, and if a candidate comes back and says, "Well, kind of felt like I've just been out on a limb," and then all of a sudden I've been called again, we'll address that internally because we are busy. We've got to be really careful, and this is where something again comes back to AI tooling. We should never be dropping the ball on that. If we've got an agent that's going, "Hey, you haven't spoken to this candidate for 3 days.
Right.
They had an interview on Monday. It's now Wednesday.
Right.
It's not appropriate.
Right.
You need to be calling them by the end of the day."
Absolutely. Another crazy statistic, since I'm a numbers guy, I just love crunching numbers. Over a 7-year period. So I interviewed the top billers, the top percentile, top 3 percentile, top 4 percentile. All the top billers, there's a big difference between the top billers, the representation of their client pool. All the top billers over a 7-year period, more than 30% of their book of business is people who were previously candidates. And the bottom billers, that number is less than 5%.
That doesn't surprise me in any way, shape, or form.
And it blows me away how important the candidate experience is over the long haul of your business. But a lot of the Shreks are having the candidate experience being managed by the people who are not the partners, the people who are not originating the business or who are not executing on the business.
And I think this is when you talk about that big team walking in the door, that's part of the problem. It's a big team. Whereas I know for a fact, because I've had this discussion with a colleague this morning, we were looking at how one of our partners is spending as much time talking to the candidates as he does his clients.
Right.
And we were just debating the merits of this. Is this like, well, is this individual wasting his time? Like the partner's time is precious. And the flip side to that, which is, but that's him just preparing his pipeline for the future.
Right.
And because the people we're talking to are very senior individuals,
right?
If you're talking to them as even though they're candidates,
right?
They maybe, if their experience is great, they remember that and they talk to their CHRO and they say, "Hey, look, we should get Leathwaite in the room. I've had a great experience with them."
Yeah, exactly.
And it's again, I said about building up the brand. Leathwaite has, I think, one of the big successes over the last few years, and not the last few years, but certainly post-COVID and how the market has changed, has how well we had an established brand, but how well we've done at keeping it elevated at a level where we are literally talked about in the same breath as, "Oh, we're going to talk to Hydrix, we're going to talk to Russell Wells, and we'll get Leathwaite in." And we'll get like it's an expectation. And for many of our clients who are very, very famous clients,
right?
I think people would be surprised. They'd have thought, surely I thought they would use a Shrek. And it's like, yeah, we do the same job.
Yeah.
We're just not Spencer Stuart. We're not Hydro Constructors.
Right. Yeah.
And I think this is, you touched on, I just want to go back to one bit where you mentioned about talking to people and that face-to-face piece. And it ties into that relationship. Again, being in the office this week, meeting people has been lovely. And one of our partners, we were talking about how difficult the market is. There's a lot of geopolitical instability. What happens there is it causes companies to just freeze. And when the markets freeze and there's indecision, searches stop. And it will be affecting everybody. The market, that's and when you've been around for almost 30 years at Leathwaite and 60, 70 years at Spencer Stuart, these things come and go, it'll unfreeze, but you've just got to ride out that storm of, we call it the storm of indecision. Like they just go, "Oh crap, what does that mean if like we've not got oil prices now go to $90 a barrel instead of the 30, 40 we've been planning for the last 6 months? What happens to, well, we were going to open an office in Dubai. Well, it's a war zone now. Do we do that? Right. Like, yeah. I mean, and it's a horrific part of what's going on with the geopolitical stuff at the moment, but, and I'm not making light of that, but fundamentally it changes how the market functions. And again, this talks to why executive search is so different. And this colleague, we were talking about it, and she's like, so all that means is I'm just, okay, so I don't have a search. I'm going to see every single client twice over now.
Yeah.
I'm going to sit down and talk with them. And we're just going to go for coffee. We just chill the cut. Right. I won't be pushing. I'll just be there, front and center, trusted advisor. And she's like, I will be coaching. If I don't see my colleagues doing the same, I will be calling it out.
Right.
And at a practice level, we will be demanding that even though the market is more challenging now than it's ever been,
right,
this is not the time to go, oh, well, we'll just write this year off and wait till it picks up in the new year. It's actually that whole point of spend the time with the people.
That is the time to create signal, to get really busy.
But your correlation between those people who meet the higher performing in my organization are the ones that are continually with their clients.
Right.
And their candidates,
right,
because their candidates could be clients and the clients could be candidates. And it's like, but it's that, I think it's a really important piece to recognize again. I love the fact that this podcast was kind of focused around AI and we've just been talking about people. But it is about people.
It's about executive search and how AI will replace the pieces to enhance the business.
Exactly.
Right? And so you're absolutely right. It's not AI in isolation. It's people and AI and people. It's all connected.
Either coining your phrase or it's a phrase that we use and it's something that you use. But that concept that AI native, that like we're cloud native and we've got so used to these things being just accepted. The AI native piece, which is that the individuals that they've just got used to it being part of their lives, not replacing their lives,
right,
part of their lives, so that they get the gentle nudge. Hey, look, it's been 2 weeks since you last talked to Joe at Big Bank X.
Right.
Give them a call, just see how they are. And it's framed in natural language. It's not like, alert, you have not called Joe. But actually you get a bot that is actually talking to you in a way that you know, however you've taught it to be, whether it is a little bit more formal or it's more like a friendly EA who's saying, right, hey, Ken, you haven't actually talked to Mark. Give him a call.
Yeah.
And I put something in your diary so you don't forget.
Right. That can you imagine what that will do to the business in terms of growth and the client experience? Like we have this built out for me personally. So there was an event that happened, a financial event that happened with one of my clients. I got an alert. I was like, oh yeah, I need to call this person. I need to message this person. And I didn't for 3-4 days. And then it's like, it's been 4 days. It's been 5 days. And then the AI told me in real terms, what's the impact if I do it a week later versus 2 weeks later? Yeah. How will that impact me? And I was like, okay, I see the impact. So I'm going to do the call now.
I actually think also for me, and this is very personal to me, I'm very fortunate I get invited to events, dinners, lunches, and I meet amazing people and they reach out to me on LinkedIn and they send a follow. But I'm in a small organization. I wear many hats and I am working 24/7. And I have all of the best intentions. And I self-manage my time. I don't have an EA. And I've tried to set up things inside Outlook and reminders. I am mortified that even today, it just went through my mind when you just said that. And I'm like, I went to a dinner not that long ago and I haven't reached out to any of the people that I had a great time with, who I really want to connect with because they're peers and I want to meet them for coffee. So I actually want to socialize with these individuals and help and share, because there were some people that were talking to challenges and I'm pretty sure I can help them. And I'm sat here listening to you and I'm thinking, oh God, if it's somebody, because it would have only taken a couple of minutes.
Right.
But if somebody just prompted me at a time when I had 2 minutes spare.
Right. On the tube.
Wherever. I've got a train journey home, just a reminder to send out the message. You need to contact. Here's the name. You had dinner with them at this thing and this was the event.
Send a follow-up.
Send a follow-up. And because the way this is a personal thing about my networking and everything else, it's not baked into our CRM, and I could have structured it all into the CRM. And I'm talking about being a good corporate citizen, and yes, that information should obviously all be in the CRM, and some of it is. But this is personal stuff, and actually, we're talking about using an agent to make me more human.
Exactly.
And actually, I'm not ghosting these people.
Right.
I'm just so busy.
Right.
With the best of intentions, I'd love to reach out to them.
Right.
And I will do it on the train on the way home now, so I'm going to make that. But there is a real piece where you go, imagine if these were my clients and I wasn't doing this.
Yeah.
And I do look at my partners and I do look at my colleagues and think, I can see how busy you are.
Yeah.
How many balls are you dropping?
Yeah.
And you're amazing, but nobody's perfect.
Mm.
And I think that's where I think over time, and when I say over time, I mean like rapidly, but in the very near future, that's where the adoption stuff will start coming. When people start to realize this isn't a threat to me.
Right.
This is actually a shield for me.
Exactly.
It's going to give me armor.
It protects you.
Yeah.
And I think that, being nice, following up, growing, being an AI guy, being a tech guy, I didn't think much of it. I was like, what's the big deal? But when you actually crunch the numbers, they make a huge impact. Mm-hmm. I personally, I want to really quickly tell you about an experience. I had my birthday last month, and thank you. And, and in California, we don't care much about that, but I also have a home base in Dubai now because my parents live there and I was helping out. So there's a bunch of boutiques, watch boutiques that I've, gotten to know them. And there's a bunch of brands that I like. One of the boutiques, when they were taking down my information, also took down my birthday, and they wrote down when my birthday was. And on my birthday, sent me a bouquet with another book on, the back, the history of that. And I saw, oh, this is really nice. And I like that brand. So I was like, I really enjoyed that experience. But who it really turned was my wife. Mm. My wife now loves that brand just because they sent me a bouquet on my birthday. I already liked the brand, but my wife now she wants to buy a watch from them. Now she's like, let's make sure we check them out first before we check the other people out. And I think the same thing happens, like, we are all humans, right? My wife saw that. The same thing happens when you're very good and diligent with one of your clients. That information spreads, not just in their home, but also they'll tell their colleague, hey man, Ken was really nice. He followed up on my birthday, and they're really good. Like Leathwaite sends us Christmas cards. That information spreads.
So it's interesting because there's some parts to it where I go, that's an abuse of data.
Right.
And so I now put on my DPO hat and go, we shouldn't be using your date of birth. That's PII information inappropriately being used. And then there's also that human aspect. And I think I think it is a warm story. I've got something similar that I think is, again, supports what you've talked to. And fun enough, it does involve wives. And in my case, it's like we were looking to buy a new car.
Right.
And we went to the dealership, and it's not a salesperson that I've worked with before, but he had spent the time to look up, and he turns and he's like, Mrs. D, she's like, yeah, you can call me. And he goes, oh, it's Liz, right? And she's like, how do you know? And it's like, because the system has the information there, and he spent more time with her.
Right.
And it wasn't and it's not, I know you can say it's a sales pitch, but it wasn't like, has he dragged you down here, sort of thing? Because the thing is, everything was booked in my name,
right?
but she'd come with me, and I think that aspect of bringing the human to the table,
right?
And you talk about with the watch and the watch company and the bouquet for your birthday, there is a fine line between it being a spam marketing,
right?
Your CRM has pulled out the fact that my birthday is X, and and you get a birthday from all these things, or it's Christmas cards,
right?
To something that, to this day, I still get messages from people at Spencer Stuart,
right? Wow,
who were my direct boss, so reporting line, so the regional heads, and I'm like, I haven't worked there for a number of years now, and you still send me a little message on my birthday and or apology that it comes late because they missed my birthday,
right?
Which is even more personal, because that means it's not the machine,
right?
That's them individually going, oh shit, I missed his birthday,
right?
And that's it, and I'm like, damn, I don't do that back to you. It's like, maybe I need to up my gas,
right?
That's why you're the managing partner and I'm not,
right?
But you know what? That's again, it talks to, and these are people in the executive search, but this is why they're executive search professionals.
Right.
They like, I work with this amazing colleague who the very first thing he does when he sees me in person is ask me about my children. And he remembers their names, what they're doing at university. I mean, this is pretty much standard fare for a really high quality executive search person.
Right.
They are so invested in you, and it's genuine. It's not a flippant, oh, you got a wife and kids, I can remember that. Oh, they're old enough, they must be at uni. It's like, how is X doing? Pretty close to finishing, right? She's in year 4.
Yeah.
Master's nearly done. And you're like, wow, even I don't remember that. Wow, I'm a dad. Like, but it's that whole piece where that, and again, when that is somebody who's a superstar executive search person, and I want all of my partners to be as good as that individual.
Absolutely.
And not everybody can be as good as that individual.
Right.
So how do we give them the tools that when they're talking to the client and they go, yeah, your handicap's 3 now, 4, and they're like, wow, you remembered that. Like, or how's the boat? Or, you know, how's the husband? I hear he's now got a new art gallery and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And the wife's going, yeah, how did you remember that? Was it a good opening? Like that, because you can be setting up the AI to be not intrusive.
Right.
It's not about being intrusive. And I'm actually a great believer in data protection and compliance. And it's one of the things we haven't possibly got time to really get into in that, because that's a thing that I do think would make for an interesting conversation as well as where this stuff's going.
We should definitely talk about that. Yeah.
But it's it's a fine line between spamming people because it feels like it's a system doing it.
Yeah.
Maintaining a human element.
Right.
So in other words, how do you get the AI agents to engage the people in the right way and making sure you don't make the mistakes of missing out? Like I'm saying at the moment, I'm not contacting these people I'm spending dinner with.
Right.
And everybody's missing out. I'm missing out from them and they're missing out from me. Like,
right.
And I don't want to promise stuff and then let them down. Like, what's their memory of me?
Yeah.
I should be fixing for that.
Yeah. On that's so interesting. It's so amazing. It's, I've been coached many times that when I walk into a room, I talk about these important subjects and I talk about data. And one of my coaches said, it makes you look really competent. I was like, yeah, exactly. I'm so competent. But then he goes, it takes away all your warmth away. Because in people's mind, when they think that you're super competent and the way you're delivering that information, you're cold. On the flip side, if you're super warm, people might presume that you're not competent because you're just warm and that's what you bring to the table. And what AI does is for super competent people also gives them the warmth variable. And for people that are super warm, it brings them the competence variable. So now it actually makes it like, depending on who you are, depending if you're a super warm person or a super competent person, it gives you that additional variable where it actually makes you a super being. So you're absolutely right on that front.
And I think this is, especially in an industry like executive search, that's game changing. That really is. That is how you keep a relationship with 5,000 people going, because you can't remember all of them. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm working with partners who it never ceases to amaze me. It's like, how do you remember that person's name? You met them 20 years ago in a bar in New York and you can remember the wife's name, never mind their name. That's insane.
Right.
And secretly, I think he looked him up on LinkedIn. But but anyway, I think this is like, I think there's so many of these topics that we could go into about the humanity of it all,
right?
How AI is going to power,
right?
I think there is, I do think there's the element of data being rich and if it's used in the right way. So I just said there, you've got to be careful it's not intrusive,
right?
And I think there is a piece to be wary. I'm not saying your organization or my organization are abusing their position, but I think there is an immense amount of scope,
right,
for this to go horribly wrong,
right,
for a lot of people in a way. And what I mean by that is either organizations getting burnt by AI that does really horrific things, AI that they don't understand, so then gets used inappropriately. we can debate the merits of whether or not AIs can be easily led to be institutionally racist or not. Like, and there are people who say that's just urban myth, and then there's ways that I could prove to you that that's not. But then at the same time, no,
yeah, it depends on the data you trained on. AI is just a dummy tool being trained on data.
Yeah, but and also when you talk about institutional racism, North America is it's a very important market for Leathwaite. We're very, very sensitive to making sure that we are delivering an amazing product to our clients, but we get some really interesting demands that around whether it is diversity, specific requests, and there's lots of laws in the US to protect people against that. Like, in New York, you're not allowed to ask somebody their salary. Because that shouldn't predicate what you then offer them. The job is paying $500,000 a year.
Right.
If you turn around and tell me you're earning $100,000 a year, I can't now offer you 150.
Right.
The job was 500. Like, a lot of this makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But also there is things where you've got to be careful where you turn around and say, oh, we need an Ivy League university, which historically have very low ethnic diversity numbers. Absolutely. So what you're saying there is actually, I don't want the correct diversity balance. I want where it's 95% white. And if your AI is using Ivy League as a power, it's now without intention enforcing a racial bias that isn't correct.
Right.
Now those numbers they're not accurate. I'm just using them as an example, but there is that kind of disparity.
Right.
And we have the same thing, Oxbridge in the UK, where people are looking for these top tier universities, and that can actually, just by asking for that, can facilitate an unintended consequence, that you're not approaching things in the truly fair manner that an organization like Leathwaite is extremely proud of.
Yeah.
We go absolutely to the ends of the earth to make sure that nobody's perfect, but we are determined that we will not introduce biases. And that actually has been a cause for concern when we look at some of the AI tooling, because it's that unintended consequence. And a lot of these systems being black box, you don't know what they've been taught on, and a simple a misunderstanding from the person using it. So I just need anybody who's been to Oxford or Cambridge.
Right. Exactly.
And that's what they're not appreciating is that will bring in an unintended consequence of a biases that you weren't expecting.
Yeah.
And this is something that like I say, I wear many hats, but this is back under this CIO banner and this sort of the data protection banner. We're spending a lot of effort. Schrecker, a boutique firm like mine, where we're working with clients who are making an immense effort. I always find it quite sad when people kind of talk about how these organizations are jobs for the boys and it's all very sexist and it's everything. And it's like, actually, I think people would be gobsmacked at, certainly in the UK and very much in the US, how much of the top tier hiring is based on meritocracy. It is the right person for the job. The issues are that further into the supply chain for the talent, the changes haven't really hit home yet. It takes 20, 30 years for universities not to just be all white men.
Right.
And actually now it's women and men. And now we've got multiracial piece and that piece.
Absolutely.
And that takes time to filter through, and they've got to build up experience.
Right.
And now you've got a candidate pool, which is actually more reflective of the population at large.
Yeah.
And what I fear with the AI piece is that we still haven't really got our head around the compliance, the data handling, and the ability to question it.
Yeah.
And I think that's the piece.
That's the best part. That's the part that should be built into systems now.
And that's that. But that from a CIO perspective and from an individual who has a belief in data, I like numbers as well.
Right.
That I want to make sure that the tooling isn't biased in any way.
See, on that front, I feel like AI will, if there's bias, AI doesn't have its own bias.
Yes.
It just exemplifies the bias.
Yeah.
Exactly. But AI can actually be used, if you use it correctly, to help you understand, if you're running a search, if there has been bias that's been introduced. And actually it does a really, really good job at it. It's like, hey, 100% of your a racial class is not represented. They make up 20% of the supply, but on your long list, it only makes up 5% of your long list. Or in your short list, it makes up 20% of the supply, but 1% of your short list is from that racial class. So I think AI does a phenomenal job in being able to show that.
But I think this is where, in a real world case though, and this is what I mean, as in human beings are intrinsically lazy.
Right.
There's a sweeping statement
Right.
for everybody. But what I mean by that is if they build up an element of trust and they don't query it and they don't realize that actually it might only be 1 or 2% out. So out of a 100-person long list,
Right.
it's 92 white men instead of 90 in that
Right.
demographic breakdown.
I don't think it should be a job for humans though. It
Oh,
should
no.
be an agents that have
Actually,
counter goals.
Yeah.
There should be AI agents that have different goals. One AI agent's goal is compliance. Another AI
But
goal.
this is where these conversations around AI then do start to expand, right? Because speaking from a smaller organization, we only want to buy one tool, not
Right.
3.
Right.
Like we're keen. We'll do it ourselves.
Right.
Now, I'm not saying that's what we would do,
Right.
but there is an element of, or we're actually really conscientious. We do that.
Right.
But the client who we're competing against doesn't.
Right.
And they're getting into the market quicker because they're not doing they're not finding the diversity, but they're finding candidates.
Right.
And I think what I'm trying to allude to here is that there have been I think there's a couple of court cases in the US at the moment where people are coming through saying, you didn't appreciate it, but your AI was ageist.
Right.
And we've got evidence to show that anybody over the age of 50 was immediately discounted. And I think it's because those early adopters didn't necessarily understand the unintended consequences. None of these firms are doing it out of malice
Right.
to say we're not going to get 50-year-old people in,
Right.
but they hadn't realized that the black box had made that decision for them.
Right.
Now, AI is evolving at such a pace, like you say, you can build in compliance, you can be getting the model to check the model to check the model so
Right.
that you're actually controlling this stuff in a compliance way.
Yeah.
But who is doing that? And that's the challenge, is it's a little bit Wild West out here at the moment.
Right.
And I think that's the piece where, for me, it's a selling point.
Right.
Again, we are, as an organization, Leathwaite prides itself on our data standards, and we actively sell it.
Yeah.
Right? We're like, no. There's a lot of search firms that aren't ISO 27001.
Right.
We are. You want to work with firms that aren't? It's up to you, but we do.
Right.
When it comes to dealing with anybody in the financial services, it's mandatory now, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's amazing how many firms aren't. And yet they're still winning business, and you're like, how are they winning business? Because they're lying. We're not B Corp, but we looked at being B Corp. I'm not going into the details. Well, we're not B Corp in too much detail, but we know a competitor is B Corp. I'm like, how? You do work for the same clients we do, and that was part of the reason why we couldn't be B Corp, because you work with tobacco industry.
Right.
How are you B Corp?
Right.
Because they've lied.
Yeah.
I know that's going to be really, that's a bit salacious. Okay, so they may have understated who they were for. But what my point with all of this is, again, is that there is an element where our clients are going to get really savvy, and they are. So we are getting contracts that come from our, top tier clients who are saying you cannot use AI in any part of the search process, any part. And you're like, you might need to give me some clarification on that. Where do you mean in any part? Because if we use it to help us automate our diaries, that's still actively, in theory, in part of the search process.
Right.
Or are you saying the active search of an individual, i.e. selection?
Yeah.
And we've got one client who is not prepared to get into the minutiae. They want it left as vague as possible. And I had it off the record. It was very much for, well, when shit hits the fan, we want to make sure we've got a catch-all that we can point the finger at you.
Right. Yep.
And you're like, wow, that's something new to behold.
Yeah.
But, the market is involved, and because it's Wild West, and people are, they know that at some point.
And this is so sad because this is where the baby gets thrown out with the bathwater, because AI can actually make you more compliant. AI can actually reduce your legal risk.
Yep.
AI can actually remove your biases, actually present multiple scenarios to you where you in every way become good. But because bad AI, all the bad AI folks, they just want to get the tool out, or they want to get the AI out, and they just want to move to getting the job done quickly. That's why I think irresponsible AI is causing all of these concerns and issues.
Yeah. But the thing is, I would argue for every one good firm, there's 9
the bad ones.
And the trouble is actually separating the wheat from the chaff. That is the challenge. As a CIO, looking at, I see opportunity in so many ways. I look at how we can transform our business, and we can be doing so much more for a much higher quality. And we already do high quality stuff. It's like, it's exciting. It really is exciting. And I know that we'll get there by powering this with AI. And we are, as an organization, we lean into the technology, like I mentioned about being cloud native and all the other pieces that go with that. We're very agile. Adoption is still an issue. It always will be.
Yeah.
But I think that the challenge with AI, I do worry. I do not want to be the firm that is on the front page of the FT where our AI has done something insane. When I say done something insane, but we've ended up putting a candidate forward to a bank that has actually then turns out to be a criminal, or was missed, or whatever, because the AI we'd cut corners because the AI had helped us to cut corners. We have a whole load of due diligence, risk and compliance. We check everything 10 times over. But the appetite for this tooling is to speed everything up. And there is a presumption, and I'm not saying this is your product, I'm saying that these products are infallible, and actually that's wrong. They do make mistakes.
Absolutely.
And you're right, you should have a tool. You're going, right, okay, we're going to run an AI over this to make sure this is compliant.
Right.
And I think that's where AI strategies, I talk to peers, and people really haven't gone into the depth of this. And I'm always asking the question, so how would you do without getting too specific, but in the UK, you have digital subject access requests, DSARs, where somebody can ask for all the information held on them, presented back to them in between points A and point B, whether it's between individuals or held in the system or whatever. How do I get out of the LLM what it knows about Ken Dickie?
Right.
And I've not actually had a definitive answer from anybody I've talked to, and I'm not putting you on the spot here.
Right.
So, but it's really interesting because at some point that's going to blow up.
Right.
Somebody is going to get a constructive dismissal case or an employment tribunal, and they're going to say, I did not get this job at Megabank X. And the AI can't tell me why. And all of a sudden it's going to explode like a can of worms. And it'll be like, well, what's in the AI? How do you get to that information? I've asked, by law, I'm allowed to have that information. And you're telling me it's hidden inside your code. Well, that's not good enough.
Right.
And I don't know when that's going to come and whether it's even going to be something that's an issue.
Yeah.
But as an organization, DSARs, right to be forgotten, European GDPR law, it's strict and it's getting stricter.
Yeah.
And I don't think the AI firms are keeping pace. They're developing AI.
Right.
But
they're moving super fast.
And they're moving so fast. They're forgetting over here is a regulatory body, a compliance piece.
It's a train wreck waiting to happen.
And that
in a big way.
And I think you mentioned that some of the clients that you've worked with have made you jump through a number of legal hoops.
Right.
To make sure.
Yeah.
And you're
our biggest client, we were in the meetings with lawyers every week. Yeah. They were on our weekly call every week as part of the adoption.
But I can imagine it's because they will have had the same fear that I'm talking to here, which is, and you're right, once you've got compliance sorted, you've got compliance sorted.
Right.
But it's all eventualities in all markets. When you're a global company like mine, what are you doing about Brazilian data protection laws? What are we doing about requirements for...
Closing thoughts, 10 years out, how do you think AI is incorporated in executive search? Sorry, I should have maybe forewarned you when you said 10. I probably should have said 5, because I actually think material change is coming. And those organizations that truly understand and embrace the opportunity that AI presents,
I don't want this to be too woolly. I'll try and be quite precise about it. I envisage that the executive search industry will weather the storm of all this transformation and change. The technology is not going to eat it up because it's so human that you cannot replace the human.
Absolutely.
But I think the competitive landscape of Shreks, I'm not so sure that term will exist in 5 years' time. Because I can envisage where the barrier to entry will mean that the industry will go through quite some revolution. Boutiques like my own will expand and grow, as will a number of our competitors and our peers. And I don't think the Shreks can defend against it. The reason I say that is they will still maintain and they will still have relationship with clients and they will still do amazing work. And Heidrick, Spencer, Russell, Corney, they do amazing work. And that's not me being critical of them, but they all have structures that are based around real estate and being in a market, and they've invested in all of this hardware and infrastructure that they're basically saying will be mothballed.
Right.
And so they will sweat those assets to their detriment.
Right.
As all around them, the barrier to entry has been removed, and they won't realize that there's a pincer movement.
Right.
The boutiques are coming at them. They're having this, and their own like one of the Shreks will break ranks.
Right.
And will really push an AI native agenda.
Right.
And I can see consolidation. I can see a real market upheaval, and I can see the market continuing to grow. The exciting thing is I can see the market continuing to grow globally,
right?
Because you'll be able to operate in markets where the barrier to entry was, I don't speak any Russian, I don't speak any Hindu, I don't like Hindu. Sorry, I those things. We will find that there'll be this great leveler. We'll bring the Shreks off the pedestal. They won't be held in such high regard. They will still be amazing because people will go, my product's as good as Spencer Stuart's product. My product's as good as Heidrick's product. I can get to the same people.
Right.
And then it will be, how good is that partner at getting the rest of the journey done?
Right.
And what used to differentiate these pairs in the market was that data.
Yeah.
Because they could afford to buy 3 million names from LinkedIn.
Right.
They could afford to buy PitchBook. They could afford to buy all of this stuff. And in 5 years' time, I think we'd already have seen some of that consolidation really hit home. And in 10 years' time, I think it will be surprisingly similar.
Yeah.
Because the transaction itself will be the same. You, as CEO of your company, will come to me, your trusted partner, and say, I need some help. We'll ask the question, is it what you need?
Right.
And you'll go, yes. And then how that is then delivered will be completely different to how it.
The outcomes will be the same. The journey will be very different.
Well, I think even the journey might be quite similar.
Right.
Because I'll be talking to you and you'll be talking to me. But what's going on behind the scenes and how we schedule all of that and how we manage our diaries and everything else, and we don't overrun with all of this podcast stuff, I think that's where the outcomes you get from the product I sell you will also be of a higher quality. You will be getting talent like you've never seen.
Yeah.
And I think that's the piece that's also really exciting. And I genuinely believe executive search has got way more than 10 years.
Yeah.
Like it's how it's embraced.